This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us on WZRD via Zoom, Judith Owen, who has a new album, Come On and Get It. And she is called a vocalist provocateur. Hi, Judith. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much. Looking forward to joining you in Chicago very soon, in Evanston very soon.
What did you say about Evanston? You are
I'm playing in Evanston tomorrow night.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, give us a little bit of the, here, let me just set something. All right. Evanston, yes, give us the details and then we'll repeat the details later at the end of the interview as well.
Okay, it's at Space in Evanston.
Okay.
It is tomorrow night, Tuesday night, and I think it's 7:30, and it's standing room only at this point. You'll be hanging from the ceiling, but it's going to be a great show.
Yes, congratulations. That's great. That's really, really great. We've been playing a couple of your songs in the last half hour. Blossoms Blues, Brown, what is the?
Fine Brown Frame, yeah.
Yes, and also Tessa's Torch Song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, well, Judith, you've had a long career, and your parents were also musical as well. Your mother was an opera singer, and your dad a chorus.
No, it's the other way around. My father was the opera singer.
Oh.
My mother, yeah, my father was an opera singer at Royal Opera House, Covent Garden in London, which is where I grew up. I lived between New Orleans and London, and that was the most extraordinary upbringing because I saw the greatest singers, Pavarotti, Domingo, I saw everybody as a small child. But then my home life, my mother was a big band fan. My father was a jazz and blues fan. He introduced me through his music collection to the women that I celebrate in this album, Come On Again. It's about the unsung heroines of jazz and blues, the women that we don't know about, who really were unapologetically one of a kind and doing it their way. And they were my greatest role models and inspiration.
And so there is that little disconnection between chorus and opera and jazz and blues. How did the connection happen?
I don't know what you mean by that. What do you mean chorus?
Well, I guess when you were growing up, and then
yes.
I did read that your parents were interested in jazz and blues. However, their main focus was on opera and chorus.
Well, my dad, yes. My mother had nothing to do with, my mother was, you've read it the wrong way around, I think, or they've given it you the wrong way around. My dad was the classical musician. My mother was a big jazz fan. To me, there's no disconnect. It's very unusual. Yes, you're right. It's very unusual to have classical musicians who are so open to all forms of music, because usually people in classical music can be, which is a shame, kind of shut down, but not really. Then you come across somebody like Terence Blanchard or Wayne Shorter or any of the truly great, Wynton Marsalis. These are people who are extraordinary classical musicians as well. Oscar Peterson, same thing. It was remarkable. That's where they started with classical music. I don't believe there's a disconnect at all. I think it's all, it's different vocabularies within one language. That's what I think it is. But the language is music.
When did you, so you grew up in Wales, do you speak Welsh?
I do speak a little bit of Welsh. My family were all fluent Welsh speakers. They spoke Welsh before English. So I grew up in London. We moved very soon to London so that my father could pursue his career in opera and was incredibly successful. And that's really the incredible duality of life. And I still live that way because I still live in London and New Orleans. So I still have one foot in classical and one foot in jazz and blues. And it's perfect. I think it is the perfect balance,
Yeah, because you have that classical training, and but then you're applying it to stage and all that kind of female empowerment.
Yes, well, it
And
really is. This is an album. I mean, everything that I
yeah.
saw theatrically in opera and
Mhm.
with these women whose music I'm covering, because normally I'm at the piano singing myself, writing my own music. This is my 13th album.
Mm.
This is the first time I've stood up and been the liberated front woman,
Oh.
and being this empowered woman at the front of the stage, and it's a remarkable thing. Because it is an exercise in female self-confidence and female female empowerment. And these women really are role models 70 years later, because this is the 40s and 50s. These women's songs and their lives and their performance styles and who they were is still, to me, they are still trailblazers, and they are still female role models. We can look to them and still learn so much about not apologizing for who you are, doing things the way you want, being in control, about not apologizing for anything, for feeling that you are absolutely enough at who you are and what you do. And I think that is a very, very clear and strong message for every young woman, and particularly for any woman who is, on stage wanting to be an entertainer, wanting to be a performer. But for women in life in general, I believe that we need to know that we do not need to apologize and that we are enough.
Mhm. How is your voice separate from these women that you have idolized and covered?
Um, my voice is very, very similar to their voices. It's very in tune,
Mhm.
because I heard them when I was 6 years old.
Mm.
First, Nellie Lutcher, Fine Brown Frame, and I thought, that's what I want to be. That's who I really am. That's the woman I want to become. And I have always been a nonconformist. I don't fit in. I don't fit any pigeonhole or any category. I want to do the thing that I do and be one of a kind, be just be doing it, as in I always say that I started life as a pleaser, as a good child, as a good daughter. And then I heard these women, and I heard how they were pleasing themselves, and they were doing it on their terms. And I loved that. So my voice is very much their voice. And I believe in being your authentic best self, and not, living as your best you. And that is authenticity completely and utterly. But, hiding who you are, not showing all of yourself, not showing your true colors, not living out your potential, is the saddest thing. I mean, that's what all we want in life, is to just be our absolute best selves.
Mhm. Well, you were very young, at 5 or 6 years old. At that time, you were already figuring it out. Was there that was very young for you to recognize that there was a glass
Yeah.
ceiling to break? Well, do you remember what it was that inspired you that these women are doing something that is very necessary among an environment that made
Yeah.
it necessary?
Yeah, I think I have this philosophy, I have this theory in life, that we come in really well formed. That's all of us. We come in as ourselves, and then we're either nurtured and encouraged to be ourselves, or most of us, we have life experiences, good, bad, and we get derailed. We go off the rails, we go in different directions. And then we spend the rest of our lives, or I have, trying to get back to be that person. Picasso was very much that person, even though he was also horrific too. But, his whole thing was about trying to get back to the child state, because that's when you're your most unself-conscious, authentic self. And I believe in that. And the first song I heard that made me feel like the light went on, as you're talking about that, the light bulb moment, was when I heard Nellie Lutcher, Fine Brown Frame. When I heard that song, it was the first single that my father had collected in his vinyl collection, huge vinyl collection. He played me that song and the light went on. It was a light bulb moment. And I thought, who is this? And it was, you know, powerful, funny, bold, brave, incredibly brilliant pianist, singer, performer, and I could hear it all. I didn't know how sexy the lyrics were. Of course, I was 5, you know, 6. I don't know what it meant, but what I heard was strength and empowerment, and that's what I wanted. And it really was, as you say, it was the moment I went, this is what I want. This is what I want. This is who I want to be.
When you were young, do you still remember the first time you sang in front of somebody? Maybe in front of the family or friends or something, you know, when you were very young, the first time you sang in front of an audience.
I was always singing. And I was at the piano, left to my own devices, because I have really, and I always share this with young musicians and young artists. I have really bad dyslexia and I cannot see symbols. So I can't read or write. It takes me so long to do either. So I do everything by ear. I hear everything. I can see it in my head. But show me a stave, show me music, I start panicking. And it's the same with words. It's terrible. But it's okay. Because what it does is it opens up your mind, your body to sound and things that feel good and things that move you emotionally. So when you explore your instrument, when you explore music, you are relying completely upon the way it makes you feel. And this is a great thing. This is a gift. And I never wanted to be a concert pianist. I never wanted to be that kind of a musician, luckily. I didn't want to be a classical musician, but I did want to write. So I was left, you know, to my own device. You know, I was just left alone at the piano. I just wrote all the time, silly little songs and sang. So my family were used to hearing me in the music room, you know, just like singing away, singing, playing. But that was it. And I do know that the first time I ever played in front of people, I didn't think anybody would take me seriously, in all honesty, as a musician, because I couldn't read or write. So I thought I was an idiot, because nobody had explained the dyslexia to me. See, I didn't understand what it was. So much of this happens in life, as you know. And so I went to performance art school to train to be an actress, and then to do dance, and then music. Music is a very minor part of it, without all the theory and all the things that I couldn't do. So off I went, and during this time in one of the music classes, the professor said, does anybody, you know, play an instrument or write music? Or was it was the very beginning of the course. And I put my hand up and said, yeah, I play piano and write. And she said, well, would you play something? And it was terrifying, because I'd been used to being alone in a room by myself, totally. So of course I had my eyes closed. We all have our eyes closed when we first sing. That's how you get through, just by closing your eyes and wishing you weren't there. I closed my eyes and I sang this song, very emotional, sad, introspective song.
What was the song?
I'm trying to remember the name of it. I can hear it completely. But it was about my mother, because my mother had died when I was a kid. And that was really the root of my music. It's the, you know, my mother's the reason I sing. My mother's the reason that I have pursued music, because it was my greatest outlet, because it was my greatest way of expressing myself, all my pain, my sadness, my joys. And my father, the reason I can, because I got his genes, because I got his beautiful voice and his abilities. I got all of that. And so I played it, eyes closed, got up, deep red embarrassment, went back to my seat, and there was silence. And I thought, oh no, this is terrible. And I went back and I sat down like this, and then I felt this woman, this girl who I didn't know, next to me, reaching out, holding my hand, and I turned around and she was crying. She was crying. And she said, that is incredible. Why are you acting? What? Anyway, turns out that her fiance had been killed in a car crash. It's a very sad story, but he'd been killed in a car crash the year before, and this was absolutely, it was that thing. And I looked around, I realized everybody was in this place of, they'd met me with emotionally and felt it, knew it, even though we were really, really young people like you, in this situation of being in university and college, and they all felt it. And from that moment on, music was it. Even though I am an actress and I'm a dancer and all those things become part of my performance. But that was the moment where I realized that it wasn't just for me, that other people felt it and understood it and loved sharing it. And that was it.
Mm-hmm. So I guess you became enamored with the communication with your audience.
Yes. Because I couldn't express myself like most of us, I couldn't reveal all my inner place, the place that was so filled with sadness and pain because of my mother and everything. I mean, I couldn't show it. I couldn't, because there was so much sadness and so much shame that was with it. There was so much that I couldn't reveal. I didn't want people to see this dark side of me, I felt it was ugliness, and so I kept it hidden. I lived in secret. It was always secrets. And then music was, and has always been the way I communicate best. And because it's not, people think that performing, live, and I love performing live, people think it's a one-way conversation. It's not for me. I sing, I perform, and I can feel you in the audience. I can feel you, and it's going around. It's literally going around in circles, and the audience feeds me back, and I feed, and they feed, and it's a conversation. I'm having a conversation with you, and it's extraordinary. It's truly one of the most amazing things that I have ever experienced. It's become so necessary to me. I don't even know I'm doing it anymore. It's so natural. But I wish I was as great a communicator in my normal life, my everyday life, as I am on stage. But that's how it is.
How has the sense of communication changed over the years? Because that was then, you were very young, but then you gained experience, and then of course you maintained that communication with the audience. How has that communication changed over the years?
Oh, what a great question. That's really, no one has ever asked me that. It has become better, greater, deeper, richer, finer, happier, because as I have become healthier, and you can see it in every album that I have done, you can see how I've grown and healed and become well, thanks to music, thanks to this community that I have around me, and a lot of work that I've done on myself that I had to. I feel that the communication, now that I'm in this healthy, strong, empowered place, is even better. It's even greater. I would tell anyone who feels that they have to be in pain or suffering to be a great artist, it is not true. You have to be able to reach that place inside yourself. You have to be able to connect with your deep set feelings in your soul, but you don't have to live that way, because that is a terrible place to live, as we all know. To actually be in the pain and the suffering as you're singing about the pain and suffering, it's not the greatest feeling in the world. And neither, because when you get off stage, it helps you when you're on stage. When you're doing it, you leave the stage and then you're back to being ill again. That's the sad truth of it. And you see it in Amy Winehouse, you see it in so many people who go through, this unbelievable struggle, which I had, because I've struggled with depression and mental illness my whole life, like my mother before me. And you see that thing where you perform and you feel great while you're performing. You feel good, you feel loved, you feel seen, you're filled up. And the minute you stop, you're ill again. You feel terrible. You're alone and lonely. And I think that what I want to send out, the message I'm sending out with this album, the message I'm sending out now with all the fire and ferocity I can in life to young women, like I said, I want them to actually miss a few of the hurdles that I had to jump. I know everybody has to do it for themselves, but I want young women to know, like I keep saying, that you are here to be your greater self and not to ever put yourself in a secondary situation or to please someone else. You are here, you are enough. You do not have to apologize. You don't have to go quietly. You want to be your best authentic self. And if people don't like it or don't like you or have a problem with it, tough. That's the thing I didn't know when I was young. It's not, you don't have to be loved by everybody. You don't have to be everybody's best friend. You just have to have those people in your life and enough people who think you're great. That's it. That's it. You don't have to please everyone or be popular with everyone. You don't have to. And the only judge, the worst judge, and I knew this in my young days, the worst judge, the only judge is you. You are your worst judge. You are the person stopping yourself. And I think that is what's become very clear in my communication is now I actually don't care. I'm as big and as bold as I want to be on stage. And that's the connection I want with not just women, with men too, because I love men. I'm surrounded by men. They're my band, you know. And I want it known that great men love strong women. That's the truth. And that's what we're looking at. And so for me to talk to young people about this, having gone through all this myself, I just love the fact that in Europe, my audiences are like average age 24, 25. I love that. I just love it.
What about in the US? Do you have any idea about the average age of your audience in the US and New Orleans?
Well, I'm just starting touring now, and so I'm looking forward to seeing. I've had some pretty young audiences so far, and so a variety of ages. Quite useful actually in New York for sure. I played the Grammy Museum in LA. That was extraordinary, but that was just on a different level altogether. It was incredible. But I think that because this music, you know, I get people coming up to me at the end of shows, usually young people, saying, "I didn't even know that I like jazz," or "This isn't. I didn't know I like this music." And it's like, that's right. That's right. There's a lot of music that's called something that you don't think you like because you haven't been exposed to it. A lot of people think, you know, oh, I don't like classical music. Well, you hear classical music every day on TV, in sports, on every ad, everywhere online. You hear classical music all the time. This jazz that I'm performing, that I'm playing, is joyful, uplifting, transporting. It elevates you, it makes you smile, it makes you happy, it makes you want to dance around the room. It's a very different kind of jazz from what a lot of people think jazz is. It's not somber, it's not introspective. It is releasing and it's liberating.
So is this kind of jazz, do you have the influences from maybe some of your Welsh culture, or is it from New Orleans culture? What is the influence of this jazz that you like to perform?
The woman that I'm singing about, all these women, this is their music. And it's the music of 40s and 50s jazz and blues, and the music of that period, because jazz was the popular music of the time. It was for dancing. It's dance music. It's meant to be short and sweet and fast and fun and really meant to get you dancing on the floor. It's what club music now. That's exactly what this is. And so all the songs are from my childhood, from what I heard in my dad's collection. They're all the women who I heard, who mostly are unknown. Nellie Lutcher, Julia Lee, Mary Lou Williams, Pearl Bailey, one of them, Peggy Lee, known, Blossom Dearie, of course, cult figure, but not that known. They're all women who we should be getting down on our knees and thanking for opening the door to women like me, for any woman that wants to be bold on stage. So the music of New Orleans is so important in the making of this album. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I don't believe this record could have been made anywhere else, because jazz is a living art form here. It's not a museum. It's not neat and tidy. It's not lovely and kind of, it's, again, it has a very, they call it down here grease. It has a greasy, sexy, loose but not loose feeling, and it's because jazz was born here. It comes out, it was born here. It came out of brothels. It's from sex. It absolutely is this beautiful dance between sexuality and musical brilliance. And these songs that I'm singing are all like double entendre, innuendo. They are sexy. And that's what makes them even sweeter, the fact that they're coming from these women, these powerful, like bold, handsome, gorgeous women, and they are having such fun with the sexiness, with the double entendres, with the words, with the meanings. It's a real throwback to another time. But these women were so brave. 70 years ago they were singing this stuff. 70 years. And we think we're only just now figuring out how to be sexy on, like we feel like we're being empowered women on stage. These women were doing it a long time ago, when it was dangerous to do this, when it was really dangerous. And so I think that New Orleans and my musicians from here, who are extraordinary, one of whom, by the way, Lex Wachowski, actually studied at Northwestern. He's very excited about coming back to
Evanston.
Back to Evanston. Yeah, he's sort of like, oh, this is incredible. I'm coming back home. I'm coming back. I want to go on campus and see my friends, see some professors. So yeah, he was at Northwestern. So he's thrilled that we're coming back. And he's one of many, like me, like my percussionist, drummer from Lisbon, Pedro Segundo, who are all drawn to New Orleans because it's the music that we love, but it's also, we were talking earlier, community. A true musical community is a scene, it's community. You can go and see 30 shows, great shows a night. I mean, I'm not over, that's not an exaggeration. It's throbbing with musicality, and that's why we're all drawn to this place. For all its troubles, for all its problems, the music is pure, absolutely immovable, and is something that you can't, you can't make it Disney, and you can't stop these people from needing, having to create music and being musicians. It's a really, really wonderful place to live in.
I do want to understand a little bit about how you came from Wales and then ended up in New Orleans. So what is the connection there? When you were young, was your family not the norm of families in Wales?
No, and we were living outside. They weren't at all, not at all. They were, like I said, they left because of my dad's need to his career to be in London, but it wasn't typical for London either, not at all. And the thing that I believe set me on course for New Orleans is that my dad had also, amongst these women, amongst these beautiful women's records, he had a collection of Jelly Roll Morton, Louis Armstrong, Mahalia Jackson, all these unbelievable New Orleans plays. So I knew the sound of New Orleans. I knew the piano. Everything was piano in our house. We were big piano lovers. And so that sound and the Professor Longhair sound, everything, it was already there. So when I met my husband in London. I moved to be with him in Santa Monica in California. And then we very soon came down to New Orleans for Jazz Fest, to see Jazz Fest. And he was already in love with New Orleans. And the minute we arrived in the French Quarter, I turned to him and said, why aren't we living here? Why don't we live here? It was just like, it was so clear that this place was a musician's dream. For me, a musician's dream, because it was everything: the sound, the feeling, the community, the warmth, the generosity of people, the love, such kind and wonderful people here. But the minute I went to a show, the minute we went out, the minute I heard music, I was like, that's it. That's it. So we started coming down. We got a condo. I started recording down here. I met my now co-producer, who was the engineer on Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life, which is another of my favorite albums of all time. That had such an important effect. Stevie Wonder to me is like, I talked to Jacob Collier about this. It's like, he's a god. He's affected all of us so deeply, so much. And so this became my home, my musical home. And then I always need to go between, like I said, I am the eternal tourist, and I like being that way. So I work a lot in Europe, an awful lot in Europe. And this is where this album started there, which made sense. Because this is where I heard it, because this is really where it all began. And so the two really balanced nicely. And if it wasn't for COVID, honestly, I wouldn't have made this album, because I've been putting off making it for years and years and years. I knew I wanted to do it, but COVID meant I was here, I was stuck, I wasn't going anywhere, and I got depressed again, like we all did. I got anxious and depressed and worried. And I turned to these women again. I remembered how it felt when I was a kid, all my fears and my worry and my need to feel joy, how important they were, how much they meant to me, how they lifted me up. And I went back to them and thought, well, I want to do something that makes me happy, and makes my listeners and my audience, my fans, makes them feel joy again. And
these women saved you again.
Yeah, they saved me. You're right. Twice in my life, these women have saved me. Yeah.
When what are some of the milestones of your career, would you say?
Well, I think I've played in some extraordinary places. I've played in so many of the rooms and concert halls that I've really wanted to in life. I think milestones for me, it's sort of, I played at the Hollywood Bowl, and I sang at the Hollywood Bowl, and Carnegie Hall, and the Royal Albert Hall in London, and those are all, all these places. Sydney Opera House was an extraordinary thing to play there. I mean, these are moments that you just kind of go, pinch me, I can't believe I'm doing this. But the true highlight in my life, and I'm not being corny about this, the highlights are the smaller things that you don't think would be the highlights. Meeting and working with people who I adore, musicians who I looked to and were so inspired by, meetings, Stevie Wonder, hanging out with Joni Mitchell, meeting people, Burt Bacharach, the same thing, people who I've looked to and just gone, thank you. And it means that those are the things that mean so much. Seeing Nellie Lutcher, having heard her as a little girl, and then coming to LA and seeing her when she was an 80-year-old woman playing one of her last shows. I was crying my eyes out, because I never thought I would see that. Never. And that to me is miraculous. Those are the highlights of life. Every time I'm in a studio, I was in the studio yesterday, I'm already recording the follow-up to come on and get it, because you have to try and get this, under your belt. The exquisite pleasure of playing, of recording and getting that one take, because it's all done live. I'm in the studio, I'm surrounded by the musicians. I don't believe in isolation. It has to be one take and that's it. And it has to be a performance. Mm-hmm. The exquisite pleasure of that moment, that unbelievable moment, it's heart-stopping. It's so great. And I think that's, and one of the highlights recently was taking this album to London and playing in my hometown and having a packed venue, standing like sardines and hearing this roar of applause and feeling the joy, the communication coming. Nothing feels better than when you take stuff home, and it's the truth. Mm-hmm. To take that back and to have that response from the place where it started, where I was that kid, where I was wondering, how could I be there? How could I get to that place? How could I be an American, do what these women were doing? How could I do that? And here I am all these years later, doing it, living it, loving it. And now I get to actually send out that message, that feeling, that joy to a totally new generation of people. I think it's the most extraordinary thing, and I feel unbelievably grateful, because ultimately that's what music is. It's the greatest communicator, and I personally, I think it is the most life-enhancing, healing thing that there is. So I take all of this with great gratitude.
You mentioned that some of those highlights of your career were meeting your role models, such as Nelly and Stevie Wonder. That is part of the communication that we were talking about. We did talk about communicating with the audience, but your communication with those idols, what did you come away with? What did you learn after you were with them in person?
I'm happy to say that the people I love the most, like Stevie Wonder and Joni Mitchell, the thing that I came away with, and I've met them a few times now, is incredible sense of humor. Funny, I mean, so funny, so much fun. Sense of just kind of absolutely no artifice, real, joyful, fun, like absolutely like me, just somebody who wants to. That's what made me feel so good. The people I've really looked up to and loved in my life, thankfully, and that's not always the case, and I believe in this, are the kind of people who have a real passion for life, not just for music, for life. And they want to laugh and feel joy, real joy, and to just grab life, grasp life, tackle life full on, and to be fearless. And both of those people, Stevie and Joni, they are fearless. They are like our leaders. And what they've done, both of them in their careers, is to be so unique, so original, to not be told how to be or what to be by anybody. They've been true artists, authentically themselves. And they've done it with spirit and balls. And I celebrate them in everything that I do. I celebrate people like that. That's what these women were. That's who these people who I idolize and adore are. And it's wonderful when you meet your idols, and they are how you hope they be, because it's not often the case. But luckily for me, that's what I came away with, was a real passion, lust for life, a lust for life.
You have that lust for life too. You were writing and then playing the piano. What are some of the songs that you wrote yourself?
I've written hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of songs. I've written 12 albums worth of songs and hundreds others that didn't make it. And I've also arranged the most unlikely songs at the piano and played them. I've turned rock classics into jazz standards like Eye of the Tiger. Let's talk about Chicago there with Jim Hisarick with Survivor's Eye of the Tiger. I've made that into like a Dave Brubeck piano piece, which is a joy beyond joys. I did the same with Smoke on the Water. I did the same with Soundgarden, Black Hole Sun. I've taken so many songs and totally flipped them so that they're about me, they're about my life, they're about, because I can't sing anything I don't believe in or isn't personal. And so if anybody wants to hear my original music, you've got 12 albums you can pick from. I mean, you can literally just go to Spotify and find me into all those great sites. You can find my stuff everywhere. I'm on iTunes, I'm on everything. But my music it's not a million miles away from this. I may be up front and center, but I get to the piano. I can't not be at the piano ultimately, because it's my first love. It really, really is. It's my best friend.
Did you have to take lessons, or did you just saw your father play and then you just learn from him?
I took some lessons and it became apparent, like I said, that I could not read. And everybody thought I was going to be an incredible classical pianist because I was so fast. I could just hear everything and play everything. And then you put the music in front of me and I would just start to panic and cry. And so I was left alone. They just realized, no, she can't do it. She won't be able to do it. So my sister was a great pianist and, classically and a cellist. But luckily for me, I was left alone. So I became the songwriter, and I encourage, young pianists, young musicians to do this thing, which is to just explore. Shut your eyes and explore, especially the piano, explore those chords, explore this world, this beautiful world that you can create for yourself and get lost in. It's just, it's always been an incredible thing. I hope I never ever lose that gift.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the opportunities that came your way that you did not expect? For instance, there was that incident in 2015 when you were invited to support Brian Ferry on his UK tour, and then tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, I was playing at I was going to play, and finally I did, so that was fine. But this was awful. I was opening for Brian Ferry, and we'd gone like whatever, Europe and Russia and America. It was amazing. And then we got to the Royal Albert Hall, which for a Brit is just about the pinnacle of where you can play. It means so much. It's such an incredible place. And I was the only member of my family who hadn't played there yet. My dad had, my sister had. So, and I was like, I got this is now my chance. And he got the flu and lost his voice. And 15 minutes before the show was about to happen, had to cancel because he literally had no voice. I kept thinking it would come back, and he just felt terrible. And very unlike me, very unusually, I turned to there were all these visitors that had come in from Italy, journalists and people, amazing, and Rolling Stones, and various people had come in to see my opening show. And I just said, okay, everybody back to my house. I've never said those words in my life. It's ridiculous. Everybody back to mine. And so we all piled into my little house and just like crammed in. And me and my incredible musicians, we just did the show there. And actually, it was more exciting because of it. It was so thrilling, I think, just because we needed to play. We were so disappointed. We were so let down. But for the journalists and the people visiting, they couldn't believe that they were getting this opportunity to just see this acoustically in my home with these amazing musicians. And that was just like, it was a thing. And I swear to God, I've never got better press in my life than from that occasion. So it just shows you how yeah, things that you think are going to go really wrong or are going wrong, you can make lemonade from lemons if you hold yourself back from falling apart and just bursting into tears. Hold it back and just think, hang on, is there any way that I can salvage this or make this do something? And it's not always the case, but this was one of those moments where it was like, yeah, that almost was better than the show at the Royal Albert Hall itself. It was incredible.
Yeah, it's such a turning point.
Yeah.
Please tell us a little bit about Courgette Records.
Courgette Records no longer exists. That's my old record label. Yeah, that was something that I did for a few years. My new label is called Twanky Records. That's what everything is done on.
Okay.
Twanky is sounds ridiculous, and what a stupid name it is. But basically, it's a bit of a joke. But in Britain, we have this thing called pantomime, and there's always a man dressed up as an old woman called Widow Twanky. And it's just I don't quite know why it came about, but it made my husband and I, and it's both our label that we do everything through, and it just made us laugh so much. I can't even remember how it came about, but Twanky Records, We're Behind You. That's something that kids always scream at the actors when the baddie is walking, like Aladdin or something, when the big baddie is walking behind, they scream, it's behind you. So our thing became Twanky Records, We're Behind You. We were just looking for the absurd, ridiculous, just the wrong name for a label, and here it was fantastic.
Do you have a lot of artists, or is it mostly?
No, it's just us. It's just us. Yeah.
Is it much easier to be your own record producer rather than your own label, rather than try to work with other labels?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing. It's sort of I was signed to Capitol Records, like all of these women whose music I'm doing. I was also signed to Capitol Records, and it was the best and the worst of times. And it was the best because it was extraordinary. It was amazing recording there. It was amazing being like a big artist that was going to do big, amazing things. But guess what? Very typical story. Get ready for this one, everyone listening. The president of the label got sacked, failed upwards. And next thing, whole new bunch of A&R men, whole new president. And now it's like, okay, goodbye, old regime, hello, new one, goodbye. So, and this happens all the time. It happens all the time. And so it went from being a situation where I was going to be, selling multi-millions, and it was a terrific record, it really, really was, to you're an orphan. And it was the entire label. It was terrifying. It was absolutely an artist's worst nightmare. And I got the album back, and it was featured on in a lot of TV and film, and it was incredible. And luckily, it did really, really well and made a lot of money back. But ultimately, I promised myself at that point that I would never, ever, ever jump through hoops again to please people who could not be pleased because I was powerless. I was powerless. And artists, sadly, are pretty much powerless. And you see this, whether it be Taylor Swift, who's come out and said the same thing, which is absolutely, I'm never, ever, ever giving that power over to anybody ever again. And good for her for being the kind of person who is talented and smart and a great business person, but also somebody who's just not going to do that anymore. And she's ruling the world anyway, as we know it. But whether she be on a major label or not, she's the one in control. And when you're in a situation where you're basically being treated like a naughty child, being told by mummy and daddy what you should or shouldn't be doing, it doesn't feel good. It never does. And I think artists have been made to feel that you have to give everything up. You have to give everything over to somebody else because you're not a business person. That's not really it anymore. You know, like I said, Jacob Collier is a perfect example of how you don't have to do that, how you can use the internet, how you can be a real visible and musical presence without having to give anything away, because you're creating it yourself. And nobody knows how the bloody hell to make any money, because with streaming, it's like you can, you know, I sell I've streamed millions, and it's like ridiculous how little you make. But the point is, we need to get on top of that. We need to figure out how to make that work for musicians, how to not be just giving away our bloody music.
What about radio promotions? Do you do any of that? Because when you get played on the radio, don't you get the royalties that are at very little, but isn't that more significant than the royalties that you would get from streaming?
It's not that great, to be quite honest with you. It's not enough to actually support a person. You have to have a huge hit. You have to have hits. You have to be a pop star. You have to have hits to get any worthwhile amount of royalties from radio. So if you're somebody who is doing something that isn't in the mainstream, which most artists aren't, you know, you've got massive people on top, like your Taylor Swift, like your Beyonce, it's fantastic, amazing. But if you aren't in that area, if you're not that mega, but you are somebody who still can have a really incredible career and really do great stuff and be on the road, that's where it gets really, really difficult to actually be able to sustain this. So, and be in control. But again, there are ways around this. There are, you know, with YouTube channels where you get subscriptions, there are different ways around it now. People are realizing that you have to look at this business in a very different way. And not that, you know, the Spotify's and YouTube's, those are the new record labels. They really are. That is a record label now, more than it, you know, it's the same as what it used to be when it was labels. So it's about trying to find a way that is outside the box that works for you, where you can actually make that work, make that pay. We're in a very, very weird place right now. It's so funny that SAG and AFTRA, you know, the actors are out on strike, because they, you know, they're worried about the, you know, the streaming, the licensing. It was the same thing with the Writers Guild. And I think all musicians have been watching this thinking, you know what? Our stuff is stolen all the time. We're getting streamed and getting nothing. I mean, what Spotify charges in order to listen to whatever amount of music that you want to listen to, you know, even on which seems to me is so small, it's ridiculous. And that's because there was a period of time some years back with Napster and everything where musicians got used to giving it away for nothing, encouraged to give it away for nothing. And that set a really, really bad precedent, because this is your art, this is your worth, and nobody in any other business in this world says, oh no, you can have that for nothing. You know, it's like, I'm going to work in a bank for nothing. Yeah, I'm going to go and build a building for nothing. Yeah, it's fine. You know, I'll give it away. No way. So I encourage, you know, and I'm not sure we can get back to doing it right now, because we've gone from everything's for free to no, we need to monetize this. But it's very, very difficult, very tricky for musicians.
Is there anything in your career, looking back, that you would have done differently now?
Ooh, you know, I would have stopped apologizing for myself a lot earlier. I mean, I keep saying that, but it's the truth. I would have got rid of, I would not have got rid of, but I would have stopped working with people who were bad for me, who I now realize in hindsight were absolutely just enabling, or rather they were feeding something that was already like in my family, or something I was used to that wasn't good for me, but that I felt that I needed. I would have moved faster through the negativity and the people that really, really were not helping me, but felt familiar because they, like I said, they remind me of a family situation. I think that's mostly my regrets, are not having been unapologetically brave and fearless earlier. That's the only thing that I really do regret, is not having reached this earlier. But the truth is, that's that's the path I took. That's the road I took. That's the life that I had to live, I believe, to get to this point where now I can turn around and say, please, please do this faster than me. Please jump on this sooner than I did. I'm telling you, you don't have to do that. You don't have to go through that. And I, I had to learn it the hard way, and a lot of us do, but at least I'm here. So part of me I don't really regret anything at the end of the day. I spent so much time, honestly, regretting the past and catastrophizing about the future. And then I suddenly realized, you know what, the only thing I have any power over is now. It's the only thing I can do something about. It's the only change I can make is in this minute. And that's the only place that I can be the person that I want to be. So stop looking backwards, stop looking forwards. You have no control over it. Live right here and now.
What is your favorite part of promoting a new album?
Touring, playing live, just being absolutely alive on the road with my pals, with my fabulous gentleman callers, my band. The joy of travel, which is a nightmare. I'm saying the joy of travel, but try getting on a plane every day or every other day. It's a nightmare. But truly, the joy of being with people you love being around, and that you got to be really careful who you choose to have in your band. The people that you want to collaborate with have to be those same people who have a lust for life and a joy in life, because you have to have that similarity, that desire to enjoy the experience. And savor it, and to know how lucky we all are. So
is it also on account of we talked about earlier that feeling of communicating with the audience, since you're enjoying the touring most, might it be that you're being in communication with your audience?
Oh, it absolutely is that. Nothing, studio is great, writing is great. Nothing is as great. Nothing is as great as live performance and having that conversation with your audience, feeling it. It's just like it's almost vibrating. It has that feeling about it, being in that zone, and you're all in it, on stage and off. We're all part of the same place. And then afterwards feeling completely satisfied and exhausted, but happy. And knowing that you're doing it again tomorrow or the next day, that's a gift. That's a gift.
How could our listeners see you in Evanston tomorrow? Is there still a chance for them to get in?
I think if you turn up, if you call up, I think you might be able to squeeze in. People always drop out. I think there might be standing room to squeeze a couple more people in. So please, I encourage you, if you're in Evanston, if you're a Northwestern, if you're hanging out, if you're a musician, if you want to see truly some of the finest New Orleans musicians you will ever see, come down to Evanston, 7:30 show, and have a party with us.
7:30 to about what time?
Oh, it'll be a couple of hours, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
7:30 at the Space. Do you have the address?
No, I don't.
That's okay. I'll find it in.
Yeah, Space Evanston. You can't miss it. Just Google it. There is only one.
Yes. Well, Judith Owen, thank you so much for joining us on WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM today. Good luck with your show, and good luck with everything that you do, and keep in communication with your audience and with WZRD.
Thank you. You've been an absolute delight. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, love.
Bye.